All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. This is our second installment of the most meaningful conversation. So we're kind of inviting you into our world. So Marta, Reese, and I are here. Say hi, Marta.
Hello. Hi,
Hello.
Mike. Hi, everyone.
So we just when we ended last time with the activity that we were doing, which was in my world. I wanted to give like a couple of days to kind of let that experience set in, and I wanted to ask, what was the takeaway? What happened after that conversation? Do you feel like there was some forward momentum? Just what happened in your world after you played in my world? So Marta, you and I have been talking online and been conversing since that last call last week. I just want to ask you, so what happened? What was the takeaway after experiencing the in my world activity?
Well, wonderful. The biggest is it left me in a very centered place, a very grounded place, and without trying to plan this, it just so happened that I had a call with a CEO, the president of the Augmandino Group, Paul Blanchard, about a few hours later, and what I noticed, the biggest takeaway was that that whole entire conversation we had was really prepping me for being in this conversation with this president. It was a very unique opportunity. I had been inquiring about habits and Augmandino's work, and I reached out to them and to the organization through LinkedIn and said, I'm only now, I've had these books for years and I'm only now getting into them, and I cannot believe the impact that they're making. And because of that, in March, somebody followed up with me a few weeks ago, and it was a very interesting process. They got my attention by sending me a text and letting me know that they saw some interesting things with my habit finder tool that they'd like to share with me, and I thought that was really intriguing. And out of that conversation, the woman I was speaking with said, I'd like to schedule some time for you to speak with our president. And I thought, that's really odd. Nobody ever does that. I was like, nobody ever does that. And I said, well, I don't want to waste this person's time. I'm obviously very curious. I don't want to waste this time. I know this is, the contextual framework is, looking at getting me enrolled in their Leadership Institute programs and things like that. But I said, I'm not in a position necessarily to take that on right now and make that financial commitment, but I am interested and curious about talking to Paul. I've never really spoke to someone about his work or about Augmandino's work. So that was the takeaway. It was an amazing meeting, I should say, because it was virtual, but it was face-to-face digitally. And it was just a beautiful, magical conversation. And I don't know that I would have felt as comfortable, not comfortable, because I definitely was anticipating it, but I don't know that I would have navigated through that conversation as easily as I did with confidence if I hadn't had that conversation with you.
Yeah, so it definitely sounds like the communication was enhanced after the experience. Yeah.
And what was interesting is there was no fluff. He went straight to the point.
Yeah.
Which is, you're this, and it was all about mindset, really, and our set points. And I've heard these conversations before in other programs, but this one sounded different because he went straight to the point and he asked, what happened, alluding to, like, how come you shut your heart down? Your habit finder demonstrates that you are a highly skilled, entrepreneurial type of individual. And when we see these kinds of results, we know that something has happened to them. And so what came up for me, he didn't have to say too much. I just started tearing up, and I knew exactly what he was talking about.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
The tragedy in Sedona, that really shut me down. And so what I thought was amazing is that in a very relatively short amount of time, we got to the heart of the matter. and spoke very intimately. I even said to him, I can't believe I haven't met you before today. You're a complete stranger to me. I know about you, but you're a complete stranger to me. And I don't know that I've spoken as deeply with someone, even in the last couple of months. I mean, I could think of people like you, right, that I've spoken to. But there haven't been many. And then the other great thing was we started talking about this idea that, I might be playing the wrong game, that maybe it's a biological game, that there's maybe neural pathways that I need to form. It's not like enhancing my skills. It's not gaining more skills. So, the reason I'm bringing that up is because I think that's very, very consistent with a lot of people like me and a lot of people who might be hearing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's actually segueing perfectly into kind of my takeaway and my thoughts as well, and that will lead us into our question circle activity today. But yeah, tell me more about getting to the heart of the matter with that conversation you had. And this is probably not going to be included on the recording, but I'm interested in hearing. You said that that the Augmandino group has a connection with the Feed a Billion. Did I hear that correctly on the email?
Yes, it was really, really interesting. So we're, he's just kind of asking me, what is my story, that kind of thing. And so I started, where I always do in Portuguese, and then fast forwarded it to what have I been doing the last couple of weeks. So I mentioned to him that you and I had been working with the X Prize Design Challenge, that we both submitted ideas. That we were still processing. That we had heard our design hadn't gotten selected, so we were just kind of processing all of that still, and that I had a real commitment to keep moving that forward beyond the X Prize. And when I told him the nature of it, that it was to feed a billion and lift farmers out of poverty, he immediately was like, oh my. He's like, the team of Feed a Billion is working right next door to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought, another takeaway, and I've experienced this before in our conversations, and then with many, many years ago, too, with other conversations, that there are no accidents. This idea of coincidences, that they're not, it's not happenstance. When you start to focus energy into something and really start to bring forth principles of what you're focusing on, you start to see interesting correlations and connections like that. So that was very interesting. And so that group, which is Tony Robbins' organization, that group, Feed a Billion, is one of their clients, and they were working right next door. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I find that, I don't think that is an accident, and I find that there's, when I read your email that day, I was just like, this can't just be happenstance, there just seems to be, I think it's just a matter now of just following, where the energy goes, and really just, kind of staying present, getting right back to the heart of the matter with these conversations. And you said you possibly wanted to share this conversation?
Absolutely. Yeah. I might, with him, I had a different idea about it, but I did want to share what we had been designs were. I got connected with him in a way. I mean, I obviously he texted me the next day, so I have his phone number. I have a way to connect with him on LinkedIn, so it's very possible to keep updating him on that. And I got the sense that, he was interested in staying connected, not just for the possible, enrollment or engagement that I represent in terms of a sales conversation, but really engaged in what are these people doing? This is interesting.
Yep.
So I might share that with him. Yeah.
Very good. Great. Yeah. Anything else you want to say about that exchange or that conversation, or anything else about the takeaway after last week?
Well, it had a similar effect like our conversations too, which is it got me to a point of congruency. I felt so complete in that conversation. There was so much intimacy and openness, and we traveled all over the place, different things. What am I doing now? What happened in the past? So there was no like past, present, future. It just felt like we had this very complete conversation, and as much as I try over the years to get squeaky complete about the tragedy in Sedona, I noticed that it's right there just underneath the surface. And when people like Paul have that bold confidence to really pierce right into the heart of the matter, it's amazing. The sense of completion, the sense of accomplishment, the sense of peace, the sense of understanding that's there. And I find that with our conversations and with the work that we do together, and that is truly, truly, truly what I want to provide for people.
That's great.
That kind of environment, yeah.
Great, excellent. Thank you, Marta. Yeah. So and my and really just kind of riding on the waves of that energy. The last week for me has been clarifying what this project means to me at the Karmic Margin Call Project, the service market economy, what it really all kind of boils down to, because I wanted to take the entire week to really come up with the best question I could for this question circle activity. So I had connected with with an acquaintance that I've been communicating with over the last 10 or 15 years, who is a writing and a communication specialist, and she also, deeply believes in a collaboration economy. So I wrote up a rough write-up now for this press release kit that we're working on, which these conversations will be a part of. So I felt a lot of clarity there, and I really think. The way forward is really just going within, really being present in these conversations. Because I think about, the strategy, the strategy as far as, how does a service market economy works? How do you create compounded interest? How do you create that exponential factor? I think, if you focus too much on that, it really slows it down. I think what separates, what this is, what we're doing, and from a get-rich-quick scheme is that there's really no emotionally intelligent component to a get-rich-quick scheme. Everything we're doing is completely based on going within and really being present in these conversations, and that is, where we can provide our greatest service. I said in the rough copy of the write-up is the reason why a $20 initial investment can accumulate compounded interest to be $1 million within 2 years is because corporate culture is grossly overvalued, and interpersonal communication, being really present, really providing the space for each other, is vastly undervalued. And I think if we can start to have those kinds of conversations, we can actually speed up the process by slowing down our time with each other. So, I mean, it can be conceived as a get-rich-quick scheme because technically you can go through the motions of what we're proposing. Everybody can do, the goals within a day and have $1 million within 20 days. But what value does that provide? There's nothing. That really only just serves to to inflate the competitive economy. So I really find a lot of value in taking the entire 30 days. And at the end of the last call, I asked our listeners to review the Rejected X Prize article. I think it's important to take that full 30 days to really to really be there and be present with your partners, really be there and be present with the service that you have to you have to offer to the world. And really just by slowing down and taking your time to be present, that is what will paradoxically, speed up the process of establishing a service market economy. So, that's where I've kind of really come up with a lot of answers from within in that, paradoxically, the way forward and the way to kind of, speed things up is to slow down and really be present. And that's what.
So true.
Yeah, and that's what this question circle activity is going to be about today. So, I will start off with this one, and we'll demonstrate the question circle activity here for our listeners. Now, normally this is done between 3 people, and you go around the circle twice, and then it ends up at the original person who asked the question. So, we'll walk everyone through that here in a moment. This is the activity that we presented at the Brown University a couple months ago as part of that initiative. So you want to come to your partners and come to this activity with a question that is very powerful, one that will help you get to the heart of the matter, like we've been talking about in this conversation so far, and will create forward motion. And you want to come with the presupposition, with the understanding that who you chose as your partners, who you are talking to, they have infinite knowledge. And I trust our listeners. I trust you, Marta. I trust that we're in this conversation because we do complement that kind of knowledge. So you want to come to it with a question that is very meaningful. And what happens is, the first person in the group asks the question, and it goes around the circle. So if you can picture a circle of 3 people, I ask the question. You can picture Marta at my right. She's going to answer my question, as thoroughly as she wants. And I'm going to give her the entire space and time to answer it as thoroughly as she wants. And then when she is finished, she is going to ask a new question, based on what she had just said. And then if you can imagine a third person in this circle, we'll say, the next person is Bob. We'll just pull up the name Bob. So Bob is the next person, and he would answer Marta's question as thoroughly and as completely as possible. And he would ask a spin-off question, which comes back to me. And then we're just going to go around the circle one more time until it goes back to me again, and then I will answer my original question. So that's a lot of explaining on an audio. I understand that. We want to exemplify this now. We want to demonstrate. So I thought a lot about my question today, and there's a lot of things I want to ask that I think would create forward momentum. But there's questions that I'm going to put on the service pages. First of all, I want to ask, what service do you want to provide, that just brings you joy, that can, make time stop. So that's something I'm going to put in the service pages. So, so I had to go a little deeper for the question I wanted to ask here. I also wanted to ask, what service might you feel comfortable with, sharing with others? What would make it easy to share this kind of information that we're presenting today with the Karmic Margin Call Project? Who do you trust enough to really bring into your circle to share this information with and not be judged? So these are all questions that have, kind of been going around my mind as I've been developing this press kit as well. So I think the first question I want to ask is, Marta, as far as sharing this information, these 3 activities, in my world, the question circle, and the one we'll be doing next week, the emotional hierarchy. I think I just want to first ask, do you know 1 or 2 people that you would just feel comfortable just opening up with and really just exploring these activities with? And if yes, you don't have to tell me who that person is. What qualities do they have that enable you to trust them to that level? So that's a lot. I can repeat that if you want to marinate over that a little bit.